Hey, what's up, my friends? Happy Friday. I am happy you are with me, chat. Thank you very much. If you're watching on Twitter or YouTube, I appreciate you. I'm humbled you're here. Go ahead, hit that like button. Holler at your boy after the video in the comments section. Let me know what you think of today's video. It's our DFS Picks Day. This is basically an analysis-based stream. It's the only one I do of the week. I'm not big on picks. I'm all about the strategy. And even today will be mostly focused on, well, here's where the field will be. I am looking for little edges, and if I can't find them, I'm going to create them myself. Now, over the last 2 weeks, I've been shouting from the mountaintops, shouting higher than the rooftops. That's why I went there, my friends. I legitimately have been saying as loudly as I can and on as many platforms as I can as well, stop using the same players everyone else is using and leverage the public. Last week in week 2, it was get off of Dak Prescott, get off of Justin Herbert, and make sure you are on the other quarterbacks in the very, high shootout potential games with very high team totals and game totals. And then last night on Thursday Night Football, I said, do not use Christian McCaffrey in the captain spot. That's a garbage play at 40% captain ownership. And he ended up being that a little bit higher, actually, I believe, like 41%, 37%, depending on where you were. And I said, go ahead, use him in flex. That's fine, but be different. And you could end up using Sam Darnold in there at 10.8% ownership in the $15 on DraftKings last night. And listen, today's theme is going to echo that. So I'm going to ask you right now, if you are somebody who has struggled for the last 2 weeks, were you listening? Here is your chance for running it back, hopefully making some money. And I hope there's nowhere else you'd rather be than right here, right now, because I couldn't be happier that you're here with me today. So I'm going to blow up my screen real quick so you guys can see what I did. Is I took all our projections here from the Study Hub, slapped it up there onto Fantasy Cruncher. It's a really nice and clear way that I can show off the beauty of FC. All of our members actually get $20 to use on FC each month. Now, one thing stands out to me, my friends, is looking at ownerships, which honestly, at this phase of the game, should be the first thing you look at. There's literally nothing else to look at to begin your week. I know everyone loves to go running as fast as they can over, and they run to snap percentages, touches and carries, market share, but that stuff's not how you win a tournament, my friends. It is there. You can look at it until, your eyes are tired and red and sting and you got to blink, but you ain't going to win any money doing it that way. The first thing you need to look at each and every week, you simply just go up and down the salary scale, and you're looking at ownership, projected ownership, and then the next thing is going to be the projection. Now, this median projection is also not going to win you money. This is not it. There's a little bit of a, beautiful marriage between the two. It's where is their ownership? What is their projection? What is the probability of them exceeding their projection? And is it worth being on that player at said ownership to achieve said, exceeded projection? It's a very long-winded, but basically, is the reward worth the risk at the ownership that you're getting the player at? And is there similar players in that price range that have a similar floor and ceiling? And if so, where are their ownerships? What is their probabilities? And we're going to look at a handful of them right now. So quarterbacks this week, I am just looking at them, and it's like, holy smokes. The ownership projection here on FC Pro, the ownership projection on the Study Hub, I'm talking all sub 10%. Nobody was higher, I believe, than 9% on ours when we did our projections. So when you've got a situation like that, my goodness, it's flat ownerships. Basically, we're just going to be focusing on where is the highest upside in our stacks, chat. So listen up and listen closely today. Every quarterback under the sun is in play in all things tournaments this weekend. However, depending on the tournament you're entering, you have a myriad of different options, a bevy of great quarterbacks in all sorts of situations, but only a few are going to end up being my selections when I'm doing 150 lineups. Or if I'm doing a single entry, I'm only maybe selecting between 2 or 3. So each quarterback is not worth using in every single thing that I will be showing you on this side of the screen today. So one of the ways I'm going to be deciphering who to use and where to use them is going to be on the upside in the stackable players, but not just that. It's going to be, what is the ownership? Let me just break down one quick example for you. So if you're looking currently at the Sunday main slate, 13 games, you've got a nice Rams and Buccaneers game where the total sits at 55 points. I mean, my goodness, what a glorious and delectable place to begin building your lineups, right? Well, let's hold on there. If you go over to the wide receiver position, one of the highest owned wide receivers projected on the slate, and he was at 18% for us, 21% here in FC Pros, Cooper Kupp. And if you're paying attention, 3 of the top 5 owned players on the slate at the position come from this game. Robert Woods, Chris Godwin, Cooper Kupp, and then we even had Mike Evans, I believe, hit our top 10 in our ownership projections. I'd have to look back. But my point is, and the takeaway should be, is that there is this game where, yes, the quarterbacks are all sub 10% ownership. They're nothing special. It's not like you're using super chalk if you're using Stafford or Brady. But if you begin to build your lineups there, you are also going to be using wide receivers that are going to be 10% plus owned. They're going to be top 5 owned wide receivers. So you can differentiate from the field just a little bit. We're creating our own edges. Remember, if the edge isn't there, we've got to create our own, right? So here we are. We're going to be creating our own edge this week. I do not think that is the team or that is the game to be targeting in large field tournaments. The ownership on the wide receivers is just too high. You can find a nice upside stack on this main slate in other games with tremendous offenses. You can use Mahomes this week. You can use Justin Herbert this week, and their wide receivers are actually a little bit less owned. Travis Kelce. You can use McCole Hardman is 3.9K. He's just like 6% something projected owned. It was very low. Mike Williams was sub 6% ownership. Keenan Allen was sub 12%. And Tyreek Hill, I believe, was 10% projected ownership. And there you go. You've got a game where you have the Chiefs with the highest implied team total on the entire slate. Listen, the highest implied team total on the entire slate. And they do not have the guys in the game right there on this slate with the highest projected ownership. So while everyone else is like, oh my goodness, I can't fade the Rams, I can't fade the Bucks, and they go use those higher owned players, you can use an offense with a lower ownership and a higher upside, especially based on the Vegas applied total. Yes, you're paying a little bit more for those players, but that is totally irrelevant, especially when we're looking at a slate like this where the ownerships are just flat as can be. We are not worried about 28% owned Tyreek Hill. He's 10% owned, and he's not even the top 3. So I am going to go out of my way this weekend, and one of my favorite ways to build my first lineup, especially if I am making a large field tournament lineup, is going to be plugging in the trio of Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and Patrick Mahomes. Now, going back to the 2020 season, I did a lineup study session. It lasted 2 weeks this past August right here for Fantasy Cruncher and Rise or Fall. And my goal was to try to identify some of the best ways to build lineups based on 2020. What we ended up seeing is over, I think, 9 of the 11 weeks that we saw Patrick Mahomes on the main slate, he ended up scoring like 24 plus points, okay? The other games, he was just not on the main slate. He was on so many primetime games. They put their face of the NFL, basically. If you're not looking at Tom Brady's gorgeous 44-year-old face, you're looking at Patrick Mahomes and that luscious head of hair he's got. Now, if he is on the main slate, you are going to see these 2 players, Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, end up being phenomenal in the same game on over 50% of the games last year. So my point is, you're looking at Kelce. How many people, raise your hand, don't be bashful here, had both Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill in their lineups the same time for the first couple of weeks? All right, well, yeah, Sunday Night Football for Baltimore, that was an incredible game. But listen, the first week, I know it was very low because ownerships were less than 15% on these guys. And when we looked at it through lineup study, there weren't too many people that had both Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce together. For whatever reason, a lot of people say, well, I can pick one of them. Had you not picked one of them and you just said, give me them both, baby, you would have had a 40-point outing from Tyreek Hill. You would have had a 25-point outing from Travis Kelce, and then you would have had a glorious 36-point outing. Add that up, my friends. Quick math, over 102 fantasy points from 3 players. I don't care that you're going to end up paying a ridiculous 24.8K. Yeah, that is half your salary, but if there's going to score you 102 points, I'm in. I don't care. And again, I talked about it already. On the other side of the sidelines here, you've got 2 wide receivers who are in a very healthy implied team total game, a game where they could potentially be throwing from behind. They are 6.5-point dogs. Mike Williams, 6.4K, sub 6% ownership. This guy has been phenomenal. He is a different type of wide receiver this year, not just pure downfield targets. 12 in week 1, 10 in week 2. Mike Williams at 22.2 and 22.1 DraftKings points at 6.4K. An absolute steal. And on top of that, you can go up the salary scale just a little bit. It's not like you got to go way up. You're going up $200 for Keenan Allen. This guy has been a PPR machine for the past 5 years of his career. Doesn't matter who is back there, my friends. 22 points in week 1, 17.8. I am loving this stack for like a tournament that we're talking like 118,000 people, something crazy like the $9 slant, 35,000, the Millie Maker, where you're just having so much wrapped up into one stack. Yes, I get it. It's like $42,000. And you have, only so much money left over. I don't know if that came out. That's not the correct math. $36,000, I think. And that gives you $14K for your final 4 positions. Mitch, how am I going to fit in my final 4 positions at $14K? Well, listen, on defense, when we get there later, there's like 4 teams that are 2,500 and less. You can use one of them. You're down to $12K. You can use a 3.8K or 4.2K tight end. You still have $10K left to fill out your final several positions. We already talked about McCole Hardman. My goodness, he was 3.9K. There's many options that are cheap, affordable, even some running backs here, sub 5K this week, and ain't pretty. That's for sure. But that's also why, if people are uncomfortable putting together that very expensive stack, that gives you an opportunity to use it and be in a very small select few of sharp people who understand the upside at low ownership. Now, here's another one I absolutely love. Kirk freaking Cousins, baby. His top 30 all-time touchdown rate. That's right. I love Kirk Cousins at that top 30 all-time passing touchdown rate. It is crazy how often he has just totally under-owned in tournaments as well. I am going to be using him, and here's why, my friends. Kirk Cousins, 27 points this team is implied for in week 3, and Russell Wilson, 28 points. Again, we are talking about 2 quarterbacks at total 11% ownership. We're going to go look at their wide receivers in a second. Circling back to our initial point, Tom Brady and Matt Stafford, their ownership's at 15.5%, but their wide receivers are off the charts, way too high when we're talking about the upside at similar priced players. So Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, every single one of them 10% and less. I'm in. I like it. And what I love most of all right now is those 2 quarterbacks, you can focus mostly on their wide receivers understanding exactly where the fantasy production is going. You guys love that term, funnel production. Well, this is fantasy funneled production. It goes all the time to DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett if it's being thrown by Russell Wilson. It goes to Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, and I guess we could add the youngster out there now. And let me, I don't want to mess his name up here. Osborne, right? KJ Osborne. He was in our player polls last week as one of our favorite players to be stacking. And he is another player. By the way, you want to have high upside in that lineup. I talked about sub 4K players. If you want to get that 5-player Chief stack in there, use the 5-player Chief stack. Then use KJ Osborne at sub 8% ownership, 3.5K. And you've got a guy who has had a target share of around 20% through all the first 2 games, my friends. And he's looked tremendous. 5 for 91 with a tutty in week 2, 7 for 76 on 15 targets over his first 2 weeks, having 12 catches. That is a very high catch rate, over 80%. I'm in. I like it. And you have an opportunity to, target really good offenses and decent players here surrounding your Chiefs stack. So if you're not using him inside your Vikings or Seattle stacks, then use KJ Osborne. And then you have 6 of your 9 lineup spots going into week 3, targeting the Chiefs, targeting the Chargers, and then you have KJ Osborne, salary saver there, one of your wide receiver spots or your flex spot. You're feeling pretty, oh so pretty. I am very, very interested in doing a stack like that. Now, if you roll out Russell Wilson, my goodness, you can plug in the touchdown equity with DK Metcalf, roll that out there, be super happy about that, and then run it back with probably someone like KJ Osborne and Adam Thielen. Maybe the 2 guys you think might score the touchdowns this week, or KJ Osborne for the salary relief. And then roll out Justin Jefferson, whom we saw score again last week. We saw Adam Thielen score 2 in week 1, 14 in 2020. Scored 1 more last week, on pace for 25.5 touchdowns. I know he's not going to get there, but it's fun to look at. And by the way, Adam Thielen. So here's a guy in Adam Thielen who has the same amount of touchdowns, very similar targets, higher target share than Cooper Kupp. And he's the same exact price tag, basically. And Cooper Kupp has an ownership projection of over 20%. We had him at 18%. And you're going to say that he is here at 6.8K. Adam Thielen's right here at 6.7K. And by the way, Adam Thielen outscored him in week 1. All right. He outscored him by 4 points. I'm sorry, my friends, but I am not taking the guy in a same exact implied team total of 27.25 versus 27 points from the Rams versus the Vikings. And you're telling me one of them has 3 times higher projected ownership? We've been talking about leveraging ownerships for 2 weeks now. Not using CMC in the captain spot last week. Not using Justin Herbert and Dak Prescott in week 2. Getting off the chalk. Cooper Kupp is chalk this week. Yeah, I get it. He is going to be a hard one to fade, but it's not like you don't have good options to pivot to. You can pivot to Terry McLaurin. You can pivot to Kelvin Ridley. You can pivot to Adam Thielen. These are all guys who I think have great upside. Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf. These players are all within $500 of Cooper Kupp. And you have, again, Keenan Allen, another one, half the ownership projection. And you have guys who have just as high as upside as I think so. And you can use these guys at lower ownership. Just whenever you're doing, stop looking at the more optimal routes to victory and embrace the volatility in DFS. My goodness, embrace the volatility. If you are watching on YouTube, again, thank you very much, Muddy Heel. Yes, smash that like button. It's free analysis, it's free content, free tournament talk. We produce, 12 videos per week, combined streams and videos, over 12 to 13 hours of free stuff here on YouTube. So hit that like button, go ahead and subscribe for more free stuff. All right. Now, if you're paying down this week, there's a couple guys that really jump off the page for me, and it's not even close, honestly. You can get some of these players and have tremendous upside, and one of them right here, Derek Carr, this guy leads the NFL in passing yards, passing attempts, 93 on the season. You can prorate this out to 790 pass attempts in 2021. Of course, he's not going to do that, but my goodness, he is just heaving the football. Just gets to face the Dolphins at home. The Dolphins just gave up 35 points to the Buffalo Bills. He might not have Josh Jacobs again in week 3. So I think that this team's going to be throwing the football a ton. And you can stack Derek Carr with any number of his wide receivers here out there in Las Vegas at home this week against the visiting Miami Dolphins, who I believe are missing one of their top 2 corners this week. Henry Ruggs is 5.2. Hunter Renfrow is 4K. Brian Edwards, 3.8K. And then Darren Waller, bounce back spot time, absolutely at 7.4K against Miami, scored 29 in week 1. By the way, got shut out basically against Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh has been really tough on tight ends for like 3 years now. They're just a very difficult team to beat at the position, and you have an opportunity to get Darren Waller bounce back, sub 12% ownership, 11.5. My goodness, he's the same projected ownership as Travis Kelce. You want a way to leverage everything, leverage your own lineups a little bit. I guess I want to be leverage your own lineups. You can hedge your investments a little bit by rolling out, if you don't want the Chiefs stack, well, then go Wilson, go DK Metcalf, run it back with Adam Thielen, run it back with KJ Osborne, and then use Darren Waller at 7.4K instead of Rob Gronkowski and Travis Kelce, 2 players who I think the field will pay for instead. I think everyone goes, yeah, I'm going to plug in Travis Kelce, super high floor, super high ceiling. And if I don't do that, I'm going to pivot and I'm going to simply just go down the salary scale to the next guy I feel comfortable with, and that's going to be Rob Gronkowski. People are going to look at that touchdown equity. Again, we already talked about the game stacks there are going to be higher owned. So I think people will just go, give me Kelsey or give me Gronk, and they're going to go over Darren Waller. I think his ownership ends up being single digit. I don't think he'll reach 10%. And then maybe even TJ Hawkinson here at 5.2 is probably the next step for players. So you're going to get a guy like Darren Waller who basically is just going to be awkwardly priced. Okay. He's just going to be awkwardly priced, which allows you to have really, really nice stacks using Vegas. And you can run it back on the other side with any one of, Jalen Waddle or Devontae Parker, maybe even Mike Gesicki, however you see that lineup coming together. And let's go one more down here. Teddy Bridgewater, my friends. I like this play because everyone's on Daniel Jones, the most volatile quarterback in the NFL for his entire career, basically. Listen, he's been okay. Everyone's acting like, he's taken this sizable step forward. I'm sorry. I still see a quarterback who's holding the football too long, has absorbed 6 sacks for the first 2 weeks. Yeah, he hasn't thrown an interception, but I think he's gotten kind of lucky there. 63% completion rate. Yay, way. Oh, yeah, it's great. Crazy. Listen, he's going to come crashing down sooner or later. This is DFS 101 in a nutshell to me. You've got a guy who's super volatile, and you've got a guy who's elevated ownership, 8-9% this week. Pass. I'm not there. No, thank you. Give me Teddy B, who has had better weeks. 77% completion rate, 76% completion rate, 2 touchdowns in both games, does not have the rushing equity, but I'm sorry, there's going to be a week sooner or later where Daniel Jones is not going to run for 90 yards and a touchdown. It just ain't going to happen. He only had 2 rushing touchdowns. He had 1 rushing touchdown in all of 2020, and he had 2 in 2019. Do you think all of a sudden he's become a guy who's going to run for 17 rushing touchdowns? No. As soon as he doesn't have a rushing touchdown, Daniel Jones does not exceed value, and you're going to be really miserable when he throws 2 interceptions, has no rushing touchdowns this week. And I'm going to go with Teddy Bridgewater, who I really like because I can focus on exactly who I think he will throw the football to. There's 2 guys. There's Cortland Sutton at 6K, had 12 targets, 9 receptions for 159 yards receiving, a ton of air yards, definitely was a downfield target. Noah Fant had 6 targets, had a red zone touchdown. I like him at 4.8K again at single digit ownership. Noah Fant, you can grab him with Cortland Sutton and Teddy Bridgewater and not even really need to run it back with anybody on the Jets. There's a very nice large field 3-player stack, and you can be very unique. And then from there, honestly, just go with the highest ceiling guys at the rest of your positions. Tyreek Hill, you're plugging in Tyreek Hill. You're plugging in maybe a lower owned Terry McLaurin here against the Bills instead of Cooper Kupp. Maybe you're rolling out, Juju Smith-Schuster if Deontay Johnson misses. You're just trying to find different types of plays here. I don't know if Juju's really the play there, but maybe Robert Woods, maybe Marquise Brown, who has been missing practice here, right? And although he missed practice 2 days in week 1, 2 days in week 2, and then in week 3 did not practice on Thursday. Once again, was limited on Wednesday. So he's actually done a little bit more. He's looked good this year. 16 targets, 12 catches, 182 yards, and 2 scores. Use a guy like Marquise Brown. Just try to be different at the rest of your picks. All right, let's slide over running back. This is pretty simple for me. Everyone's ownership is fairly flat. So, my friends, I am literally just going to allow my projections to take me to the promised land. There are a few guys I am going out of my way to get this week, but I'm not going out of my way too much at too many spots because the ownership is just so flat. If Dalvin Cook plays, he gets to go against a team that has given up. Let me go to the defense position. I don't want to read this wrong. A team that has given up such a ridiculous amount of stats here. Let me go to running backs, defenses. I believe Seattle has given up 32.2 points to opposing running backs this year. So if Dalvin Cook plays at ownership levels in the mid-teens to upper teens, it's not like he's super chalk. I'm totally fine using a guy like that. Dalvin Cook gets slammed in my cash game lamps this week. Small field tournaments I'm using. Listen, we're talking larger field tournaments. Maybe I'm using a guy like Alvin Kamara at single-digit ownership, 10 to 12% ownership. Austin Eckler, yeah, buddy. I'm sorry. You're getting Eckler in a game flow where, listen, week 1 was an anomaly. That's going to be an outlier. We're going to look back at that and be like, you guys remember Austin Eckler only getting 0 pass targets in week 1? I don't remember either, because if you look at the rest of 2020, this guy had 9 plus 4 different times. He had 9, 9, 16, 11. Listen, week 2, he had 9. Are you telling me this is a game against KC where they potentially are going to be playing for behind? It's going to be an up and down track meet, and he's only going to get, mid projection, like a median projection ceiling? I'm sorry, that 17.83 projection we had for him, that's a median projection. You're talking a single digit 6 to 8% ownership on Austin Eckler. I'm in, dude. Are you kidding me? In fact, you could probably make your lineups quite unique by going with Mahomes, Kelsey, and Tyreek Hill. And instead of targeting Mike Williams and Keenan Allen, maybe you go Austin Eckler and Jared Cook. I mean, you can be super unique in a milli maker and go with a guy like Eckler who could get 7, 8 catches. Jared Cook could have the red zone touchdown equity. I believe he scored in week 2. Did he not? No, he did not. Donald Parham had a 41-yard touchdown called back, I believe, because of offensive holding. So, I mean, tight ends are getting targeted there. A couple more running backs popping off the page for me, all the way down the salary scale. Javonte Williams, I like him a lot this week because listen, you either think Denver scores 30 points, and if so, they do it because Teddy Bridgewater, has Sutton and Noah Fant going nuclear, right? And okay, then if that happens, still Javonte Williams gets second half carries. He's had 15 and 14 the first 2 weeks. It's only a matter of time till he has an explosive performance. I think this could be it. There's a couple other players down here. I don't want to go over all of them because a few of them are going to be some of my preferred targets in my Donuts playbook, which goes live on Saturdays. That is on the Rise or Fall website. Kenyon Drake, interesting enough to me at 5.5. Listen, did not run the football very well, but he has PPR upside. If he gets a touchdown here, we're looking at 18 or so points. I'm just looking for like minor ways to be just a little bit different, again, because ownerships are so flat. You're going to have to like be different on your own because, everyone's just going to be huddled around some of these guys. And I honestly think, everyone's going to say ownership's flat. So I'm just going to target, these safer plays. And then what ends up happening is you're going to be building the same types of lineups. Everyone's going to be on Henry, Cook, Kamara. Everyone's going to be on Harris, Barkley, Carson. By the way, let's talk Barkley real quick. I am not on Barkley simply because everyone else is saying Barkley's explosion is coming in week 3. Snap rate went up to 84% on a short week. He looked much better in week 2, so on and so forth. Yeah, that's great. That's cool. Okay, whatever. Listen, you're talking about a guy who I think, by the way, his ownership is much higher than 12% over there on FanDuel, 6K. Yeah, I'm sorry. Whatever. Not doing it. Saquon Barkley coming off a, triple knee tear for all his ligaments were just shredded to pieces. I don't care if he is fully healthy again. If you're going to tell me on a 13-game slate that there's a guy who is going to be, and I think his ownership ends up getting close to 20%. So I'm not going to look at the ownership projections here and say, this is how I'm building. I think this is a spot where a model just cannot take into account, it's purely algorithmic based. And our model, I believe, has him at like 14%, but I don't think it can take into account what the industry is saying. And there's a narrative going on here. Atlanta giving up 5.5 yards per carry, whatever it is, getting shredded through the first 2 weeks. Listen, 2-week sample size, good luck. You put your chips in the middle on a 2-week sample size, good luck with that. Long term, that's not a very good way to play. Negative EV all the way. I'm not there. Guy who's going to be higher owned, and you're telling me at nearly 20% ownership, which I think he gets up to, I am not going there. If I can get Chris Carson at 6.4, if I can get Joe Mixon at 6.3K, if I can get Najee Harris at 6.6, Jonathan Taylor, I'm waiting for an eruption at 6.1. I think it's coming. Austin Eckler at a third of the ownership for $700 more dollars. Oh my goodness. I am just not there with Barkley. I don't care if the snaps rate increased. You know what did not increase? The freaking production. So 85% snap rate or not, it is not like he was a world beater, by the way, in 2019. This guy was volatile. He was not the second coming here in DFS circles. He had some explosive end of season stats, yes, and he does have a tremendous ceiling. But you know what is in between all of these explosive, productive games? A bunch of turds that sink your lineups at high ownership. So you're talking, 18, 20% ownership at a guy who has a bust rate of 50%. No. Does he work out this week? I don't know, nor do I care, but I don't need to be there. What if he does go for 25 this week? Are you going to lose if Saquon Barkley goes for 25? No, you're not. You know why? Because Chris Carson, you could be on at, 6-7% less ownership. And if Carson scores 17, 18 points, yes, you're behind all the Barkley ownership by 7 points, but so be it. It's not like you can't make that up. And Austin Eckler, a third of the field. I'll take Eckler. Listen, let's use this number. I love using the number 100,000 lineups. And let me paint a picture for you. 100,000 lineups in this tournament you enter. And Saquon Barkley ends up being 18% owned. That means 18,000 lineups have Saquon Barkley. Well, guess what? In that tournament, 18,000 lineups only pay out. Okay. So you are saying that you and the Saquon lineups already are the only lineups that are going to cash out. He has to go absolutely nuclear for that to happen. You're against 82% of the field doing other things and at lower ownerships. By the way, me and 6,000 friends who used Austin Eckler at 6% ownership, if Eckler goes for 23 points and Barkley goes for 21, I didn't need Eckler to go for 40 and you to have a Barkley 5-point week. I only needed to outscore your Barkley lineups by a couple points. If Eckler and my 5,900 friends end up outscoring you by 2 points, well, your 18,000 people moving up and down the standings at the same time with Barkley are 2 points behind all of our Ecklers. You've got to make it up. It's much harder to make up a lower owned play later at different lineups. At the running back position, where everyone has volume, everyone has a solid floor and ceiling combo, just don't be on the chalk there. It's not worth it. All right, friends, I am going a mile a minute, spitting fire today. Yeah, I've been doing this for 2 weeks. I've been waiting for people, my friend Real King, to listen. Get off the chalk. NFL is a volatile sport. NFL DFS is super volatile. Embrace the volatility. Stop eating the chalk and thinking you're going to win tournaments. In week 2, Justin Herbert and Tom Brady had a 25% combined ownership. And you know what happened because of that? All of their past targets were higher owned. You could have used Russell Wilson. You could have used Ryan Tannehill. You could have used, all sorts of these, I can't even remember the top of my head. Kyler Murray was my favorite guy I was pushing in the Donuts playbook in week 2 because he had a sub 8% ownership, and so did all his pass targets in that game. You have similar situations in week 3. I don't need to go the rest of the position by position here. We should understand at this point that ownership is everything. Analysis based on data and targets and snap shares and all that stuff is just it's white noise to me. The way you build winning lineups, my friends, is to focus on what is the field doing? How can I leverage that? And it's just that. You gather your puzzle pieces all week. Saturday night comes around, Sunday morning comes around, and you put your puzzle together then. But it should all be more weighted based on where is the public and how can I leverage it? What are you doing? I want to do it differently than you, and I want to take advantage of what goes wrong in your lineups. So if that 20% owned guy busts, ask yourself that question. What had to happen for that to bust? If there's not a way to take advantage of it, just don't use said player. If Saquon does not do well, why did he not do well? Well, maybe Daniel Jones ran for 80 yards and a touchdown for a third straight week, in which case you use Daniel Jones and Sterling Shepard and whomever else has legs that can get down the field in that game who isn't injured, which is always a revolving door for the Giants wide receivers. And if you can't leverage a scenario, just get off the game. So if you can't leverage Tampa this week, if you can't leverage the Rams, then don't be playing that game. Try to find out a different game that has just as high as upside at much lower ownerships. Guys, I know I'm potentially beating a dead horse right now, but I see chat. I know that it's sinking for some of you. Mitch has me pumped going into the weekend, says Eric. I'm ready to run through a wall. Says Steve, has me fired up. I like this. Man is spitting fire, says Real King. Donuts on fire, says Creed. I appreciate y'all. I love the energy you all bring, and I appreciate your support. It's humbling every single day to be here to do this for you as my career, but I need you guys to start listening. I've been telling you what the public doesn't hear from the other companies. The other companies continue to point at targets, snap share, defensive matchups, and all these things that are totally irrelevant in all things DFS. I can't tell you. I ran out of fingers trying to count up how many analysts last night were saying you can't not use CMC in the captain spot. Stop focusing on what they're telling you and stop being persuaded by the masses who do not know how to win a tournament. These players, these people are not winning tournaments. They are simply regurgitating good statistics, which do not have a place in DFS. Stats are fine. They get baked into a projection that is a median projection, but that's just a starting point. It's what you do with the projection that wins you your tournaments. And in week 3, I want you to keep that in mind, my friends. Hit that like button on your way out. If you're listening to this on one of my iTunes for the Fathers of Fantasy podcast that I am posting in about an hour, hit that like button, whatever it is, 5 stars, and come back next Friday for my analysis stream. It is not going to be what you want it to be. I'm not going to be targeting stats and data to give you the best plays, because that's not how you win a tournament. And I want all of my listeners, my following, my community to win tournaments based on building lineups the right way, which is constructing your lineup for the tournament you're entering, not building lineups first and then entering tournaments after. My friends, I hope you all have the greatest weekend ever. And honestly, I enjoyed today immensely, and I love y'all. I will see you hopefully Sunday morning for the 3-hour live stream right here on YouTube/DFSnDonuts. My man, Chris Robin, Detroit Beastie, will be with me, and I will see you on the inside, my friends. Have a great day.